Thank you. You are so brilliant. How's that like? A little better? A little better?
Yeah, that's good. Your mother.
Okay, so yeah, I talked to my mom about like constructive friendships, and I don't remember how it got started, but I mentioned that time, or how like throughout our early friendship, well, like, okay, so I was super conservative as a kid. Like, I was very in my shell, and it was honestly kind of a fortuitous moment that I decided that one day on the bus after you, I think you did actually cuss her out. I think you cussed at her a couple times. But that bitch on the bus who would not let Peyton sit next to her. There was nowhere else to sit on the bus, and that bitch was like sitting in the seat on her phone, just being a fucking cunt. And then Peyton was like, I don't have anywhere else to sit. Can I sit here? And she's like, no! Starts chomping her gum or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he tries to sit down, and she starts kicking him, and you were in the seat in front of her, and you come over the seat, and you were like, shut the fuck up! You piece of shit! Let him sit down! And she shut the fuck up for the rest of that bus ride. She shut the fuck up. And I was like, my hero. And I went, you got off at the same bus stop as me, and I was like, oh. And then I ran over to you. I was in 7th grade, you were in 6th grade, right? And I was like, dude, that was a heroic moment. You blew my mind.
And then you were like, dude, do you want to try this Mid-Continent Public Library brand gum?
Oh, dude, is that what I offered you?
Yeah, dude.
I totally remember the Mid-Continent Public Library brand gum. I don't remember how I got that, but I totally remember having it.
I would assume from the Mid-Continent Public Library.
Your skills of deduction continue to amaze me. But that was okay, so anyway, I was talking to my mom about like constructive relationships, and before I'd ever met you, I was very in my shell, but you were very like, you lacked the filter that I had in spades, and like I never cussed, I never anything, and then like you would talk shit, and I'd be like, we're talking shit, let me join in, and I would like come in there and start saying some flamboyant shit. I honestly owe our meeting. I owe my like who I am today, honestly, in a large part to our meeting, because I never probably would have come out of my shell. I never would have questioned religion. I never would have, given. Like when there's like kids who they decide to act a certain way, and the adults are like, then they scold you, and so you're like, oh, that's bad. Mm-hmm. And so like that in your sociological landscape, you're like you tweak something. You're like, okay, that's not okay. Let's maneuver around it, and that's how you go about building who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. I had never met anyone who had legitimately, like, for lack of a better term, given like positive reinforcement, given positive Pavlov to my quirky questioning nature. Like my parents would answer my questions sometimes, but oftentimes it would end in like because I said so, or because God says so, or something like that. And so I learned that was like the way that normal people answer. That was my whole Pavlov experience of like social conditioning.
And then I think it started with like you asked me like a...
Yeah, we would talk about religion, and you'd be like, or I'd be like, why do you not believe in religion?
And I would be like, why do you believe
You came back and we were like the same, and I was like, how is that possible? What? And I think I remember asking you one time, like, I don't see how anyone could like look at everything out there and be like, how is there not a God? And you were like, I mean, it just seems like childish to me to assume that like this comic book character, swooped in and saved everybody, and like, seems childish. And then I was like, does it seem childish? And I like, that was a pivotal moment for me. Okay, so my mom and I were talking about like constructive relationships, and I would tell her about how you and I would talk shit to each other endlessly. Like I would be like, you fucking piece of shit garbage, go put your head under my tire. Like we would lay into each other, and it was so meaningless and nonsensical and so superficial, but it was so like I never had an outlet for that before, and so it definitely helped me grow as a person to an extent. But no, I can't remember even the conversation that we were talking about, but it was just so funny because I could tell after we had talked, she was like, yeah, okay. kind of not exactly seeing it how I saw it, but I was like, yeah, she gets the point.
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel when I talk to my grandma about anything drug related.
Oh, dude.
Because she worked.
I feel like she has some.
Her prison thing.
She was in prison?
No, she worked for.
Right, I knew
and
that.
So, like, she saw a bunch of like super burnt out, like crazy methods. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize that there was a difference between like psychedelic drugs and like.
Dude, my mom still doesn't realize
amphetamines.
that. My mom still doesn't realize that. It's funny because she's so into like medical documentation. She's super into it. She has a doctorate degree in anesthesiology, which is like how to put someone under, basically all the different drugs and how they affect consciousness, which is like, I would love to have that degree.
It's a very like unrewarding field.
It is remote because it's like basically you're doing the same thing over and over, but you have to have a wide array of knowledge in order to fill in contingencies.
So that's a lot. Okay, so that's a lot of jobs. Mm-hmm. It's like you learn a whole bunch of stuff just so that you can do the same thing over and over.
Right.
If you're not like creating new chemicals or like trying to figure out what compound is useful for this. But anesthesia is something that like as like creatures we do not understand yet because we don't we understand that it does.
We know what it does, but we don't know why
or how.
Yeah, I've talked to my mom about
migraines and like why we need sleep and like we just don't understand why we
understand like what the implications or like what the repercussions are, but not why they exist, which is super fascinating to me. And it has kind of blown my mind at times. My mom is so critical. Oh, dude. So my little sister, is kind of somewhat into the New Age spiritual movement, or at least was in the past. She's was very into crystals and things like that, and like, you know how anxiety is a key word among their ranks, and my mom is so critical of it. My sister at one point wanted to go to a psychiatrist and get diagnosed with some anxiety disorder so that she could have a prescription for Xanax, and my mom was like, that's not happening. That's not happening. You don't get to do that. And I'm so glad that she did, because I think it becomes a crutch for a lot of people. But my mom is very much against that. She's so skeptical of the all New Age movements, especially regarding psychiatry. She's very much in favor of for lack of a better term, pull yourself up by your bootstraps method regarding mental health. And so, but she's very hard. She's very hard on those subjects. But then when it comes to like religion, she does not in any degree apply the same degree of skepticism.
Do you remember that video about Sam Harris's he had an evaluation of objective moral reasoning.
Oh, his TED Talk?
Yeah.
The Moral Landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So one of the people in the video was arguing that it was a very friendly discussion. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
I'm gonna drink those. So wait, could you describe the looks of the person he was talking to? Because I could probably name it.
It was two British people. I have no idea what they look like. I only listened to it.
There was one where he was debating Jordan Peterson, and there was a British guy moderating.
Yeah. Wait.
And they were on like a black stage.
No. This was like in some dude's backyard.
Dude, I don't know if I've seen this one.
You totally sent it to me. But it was okay. So they were debating whether or not like science could objectively
reason some kind of moral
code.
Some objective moral facts.
Yeah, like universal moral code. So one person was saying that like the science community does the same thing that your mother is doing with
they cherry pick.
Like they don't necessarily cherry pick, but they don't apply the same level of stringency to one aspect of their studies as they do to another. And so they ask moral objectivity, like this person was arguing that they were asking for more, like, reasoning of moral objectivity than they were of other sciences, like quantum physics and.
Well, see, man. So the morality as a subject area, it doesn't compare so easily with other scientific fields, like, for example, quantum physics. Even though that's already a bad example because it's so weird and already very subjective. Because most scientific fields are very objective. You measure, does the bean grow taller when you add more water? Check yes or no. Or like you can measure how many centimeters. Those are objective measurements. Those are very observation based, and there's no way to like interpret the height of the bean as something else. It's 5.3 centimeters. There's no debate about it.
It's 1 inch or 3 centimeters. It's
Right.
There's not like,
Exactly.
well, if you measure it this way.
Right. No, it is the same no matter how you cut it. Whereas with morality, there's so many ways to cut it. And well, so that's moral relativism. Have you heard that term?
Yes.
Most of our viewers probably haven't, but so I'll try to define it. Moral relativism is the belief that morality is open to any interpretation that it can have. How in like the Middle East, it's moral to kill someone if they're gay because you're basically saving them the sin that they would have committed and then preventing them from having more suffering in the afterlife. Because if their gayness is a sin, then you're killing them now means that they are prevented from sinning in the future. Thus, less total sin will be on their record. You're saving them. So that's like it's a moral thing to do. And so moral relativism is saying that like depending on what your moral code is, as long as you have one, no matter what it is, it's correct.
Can I give another example?
Moral absolutism is basically the opposite, saying that like there is one best moral system. Some people know parts of it, some people have less parts of it, but it's like there exists beyond any of our even ability to know it, whether or not we can know it, there exists an absolute moral code.
So one way that you could easily differentiate between moral absolutism and moral relativism is that there's a lot of people that are against the death penalty because they think that killing is wrong always. For any reason, killing is unnecessary. That would be a moral absolutism. And then if you were to say, well, this person killed someone, so they should be given the death penalty, then that would be an example of moral relativism, where something is acceptable in some situations and unacceptable in others, which is not necessarily contradictory so much as you play punishment and discipline into the equation.
Can I kind of toy with that for a second?
Sure.
So on that specific instance where there's those people who are saying there is a moral absolute, there is a truth that death is death and death should be avoided at all costs. They're positing that they know what the moral absolute truth is. And by that very same virtue of positing that I know what the absolute moral truth is, I'm having a moral relativist view because I'm saying my version is correct, your version is wrong. But I'm acknowledging that you have a version to be wrong in the first place. So there's a moral relativist would say like basically everybody's right. Moral absolutist would say like I'm right, you're wrong, and here's why. But they're still positing that like it's basically whether or not you are a moral relativist or a moral absolutist. If you are a moral relativist, you see everyone as seeing their own moral system as the best one. Anyone who's Islamic sees throwing gay people off of roofs is like that's moral. So like that's the truth of their morality, and that's a moral absolutist view. They're saying I have the most moral system.
So I think you have the correct definitions, but the wrong, like, applications. So
yeah, and it's
wait,
a squirmy
real quick.
application.
So basically, the difference between the two is that moral absolutism is believing that there is a universal moral code that is always correct, such as like death should always be avoided. So moral absolutism would not necessarily be to say like
That I have that system.
it's not necessarily saying that I have that system, and it's not necessarily saying everyone else is wrong and I'm right. It's just saying this is the truth. Like whether or not
there is a
objectively,
truth. There is a truth.
yeah,
It's not all a construct.
and so moral relativism is specifically talking about relativity in situations. So some situations warrant specific reactions, and some situations like so in the death penalty thing. Mm-hmm. So if someone kills someone, they get the death penalty for killing someone.
Right.
Does the executioner get the death penalty for executing the person who killed someone originally?
Well, no, because they are their moral responsibility is absolved because they are being essentially forced into being the executioner. So I was watching Cosmic Skeptic the other day, and he had this really quick moral checkbox. So it's it includes free will and causing other people harm to their well-being. So you can have it as does it cause others harm, and does it include a choice of your own free will? If you're forced into killing someone, or you weren't consciously aware of the fact that you did so, then it wouldn't be immoral. It's not. So like, let's say if I consciously take a knife and I hit you with it, I'm causing you harm to your well-being, and I'm doing so of conscious volition. If I slip and fall and then I chop your head off,
manslaughter.
Right. Then I feel remorse for it. It was not intentional. I didn't mean to kill you. So that's less. It's less immoral.
So
does that make sense?
Yeah, but also that's I feel like that's a separate argument, because the original question is asking whether or not there is a absolute
right. No, it's definitely off.
And so, in that situation where the executioner, it's debatable. Like, does the executioner need to be executed because he killed someone, or because he could have taken the headsman's axe and just put it back in the closet?
Right. He could
have quit and gotten off his job that day because he couldn't kill anyone.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Finish. Okay, so basically, just to demonstrate the difference between absolutism and relativism. The relativism is believing that the executioner is okay because it is his duty to kill the person who will kill more people if they are allowed to live.
That's another point.
If
you're saving total lives, if that person who you're killing now will kill more people in the future, then killing him now saves more total lives.
Then that's utilitarian.
Yeah.
And then, what was that argument again?
I don't.
The one you were just talking about. It was the executioner, because he's being forced.
Oh,
to do
right.
Something.
Because can I say what I was gonna say, because it ties in?
Yeah.
So, John Locke's Leviathan is a book denoting how we give authority to the state. We give authority to the state to have a monopoly on violence, meaning that they are the only ones who have access to violence or can use violence. Mm-hmm. Meaning that, if I use violence on you, I have violated the monopoly, and therefore the government or the state gets to use violence on me, i.e. putting me in prison, beating me down with batons, killing me, anything that happens if I resist their monopoly on violence.
Yeah.
So we give the state, because we have this notion that because the people have collectively come together to decide that there should be a state, and that is to say, like a kind of nucleus of the organism. We have decided that there should be a nucleus. We're saying that nucleus has authority. That nucleus has authority, and that nucleus has the monopoly on violence. They are allowed to use violence where they see fit because they/it, the state, has an ultimate monopoly on the moral aspects of violence. They get to decide when it is moral to use violence and when it is immoral to use violence. And so, because we entrust that authority to the state, we're sacrificing our right to say something about, hey, that headsman should be executed for executing. And so, like, there's a good amount of that at play. So, I guess, does that kind of tie into what you're saying about the headsman's guilt?
Yeah. I mean, it's still, like, I still feel that it is somewhat of a separate, like, because
like, it's just the headsman's job. He's not making a moral decision whether he thinks the thing should be. He's not saying, I deem this thief
guilty,
worthy of death.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. I have no
why,
comment.
That's why the judge, the jury, and the executioner are separate.
Separate. Right. Yeah. The executioner himself is not saying that they are casting any kind of judgment. They are just the expression of the conglomerate state's judgment. And the conglomerate state is what we entrust the moral responsibility to. So the executioner is, in a sense, absolved from any responsibility. And so, yeah, I guess that. But I mean, you can argue that the headsman gets some kind of perverse pleasure from it, because if they didn't get some kind of benefit from it, because like they get paid maybe for the job, and so the benefit to risk of their moral environment, the benefit to risk is that I get paid more than it hurts me to kill. And whether or not the headsman agrees, and so obviously, if the headsman is human, the headsman has an opinion about whether or not it believes that the case is just. Honestly, if I were that headsman, I would try my hardest to never ever look at the case, and like never ever try my damnedest never to make a judgment, because if I did make a judgment and I deemed that person unworthy to die, like they don't deserve to die, maybe they deserve to get their hands cut off or 50 lashes or whatever, maybe they deserve something like that, but I don't think they deserve to die, and I have to kill them. I don't think I could sit idly by and just be the instrument of something else's will. That's another reason why I've chosen not to join the Army or the Navy or the Air Force as opposed to the National Guard or Coast Guard. I'm in the National Guard, and so that will mean that any instance in which I would be required to kill, which would be few and far between at greatest, any instance where I would be required to kill would be on the circumstances of that person is offending my homeland in some way by attacking. And so that would be the only instance in which I would need to use that kind of executioner's power. So in my eyes, that's more justified than me being sent overseas to kill someone in their own homeland for crimes that I don't agree with, or may not agree with. If I can say that person is attacking my homeland, at least I can say that they are guilty of that, and in a certain way I can justify executioner's power
to yourself,
to myself. Yeah. So that kind of absolves me from the guilt a little bit if I were to be put in that situation. But I don't think it would ever. I think it's unlikely at best. So I'm trying not to cover that anyway. Did you write something down?
Oh yes. So earlier you used the term crutches, and this is one that's always
in terms of Xanax.
Yes. It's one that's always it's been like a quarrel in my mind, because whenever my aunt tends to use it whenever I talk about cigarettes or nicotine.
Crutches. She uses that term.
She refers to them as crutches. Yeah. And like to some extent I agree with her, because like I use nicotine on a regular basis to keep myself calm while driving, to
Right.
like prepare for any sort of anxiety driving event, and like a multitude of other like it's an addition to my life. Nicotine is just something that I always
Right. It's
I always
integrated.
have on me.
It's already integrated at this point.
And
You don't see it as an external tool. You see it as an internal device.
Yeah, and
If
so
that is even.
there will be times when I'm like, I'm not going to be leaving the house for long. Like I would never go on vacation without some sort of source of nicotine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Just because vacations are stressful, but like
Which is counterintuitive to the idea of a vacation, but it's true.
it is true. Yes. I don't think you didn't attend, but we went on a vacation with like Brendan, Zach,
Where to?
me, Emma.
Like a lake or something? I'm imagining water for some
We
reason.
went to an RV camp way out in the middle of.
Was there water?
It was like I think over 100 miles away.
That's awesome. Was it in Missouri?
No. Yes, actually. Yeah, it was in like Rolla, Missouri, in that area.
Rolla. Yeah. They have the
so-
college, I think.
It was, I think me. It was me, Brendan, Zach, Emma. I think Skylar, maybe, and like one other person. And like, we didn't plan anything. We planned to like go down there, stay, maybe swim a little bit. There was like a cool beach. There was one cool beach, and we were like, we need to go there.
So it was a trailer park. What?
It was like an RV park.
Okay.
Not like a trailer park.
I imagine it says you guys went swimming and
It was
what
for,
other
like,
activities?
It was for like rich people.
Rich people RV. That's so like.
It had like.
That's so
Wi-Fi
counterintuitive.
to camping. But like,
yeah, I
it-
mean, well,
it
like
was, it was a.
RVs and rich people don't often collide.
It's not like a. Dude. like,
Well,
who buys RVs? People who can
well,
afford them.
RVs as opposed to trailers. Let's be real. Trailer park. That term is synonymous with poverty, is it not?
Not necessarily, because there's nice trailer parks, but
There
they're
have.
synonymous.
I mean, I'm sure there have been. I
they're
think of the
synonymous with
stacks
with
from
thriftiness.
Ready Player One.
But RV specifically, these are for like those big ass trucks that you can like live in for a few days to a few weeks.
And they have like running water.
Yeah. So just wow. The place had like hookups for like water and
Mm-hmm.
electricity and all sorts of shit. And this was like a vacation where we went really like, it wasn't like spur of the moment, like we had planned it a little bit, but we basically just got our shit together, made sure we had enough cash, and left. And like, it was the only non-stressful vacation I think I've ever had. The worst part was just like sitting in the car.
That's cool.
And
Honestly, dude, that's as much as you can ask for. It's just a break from the stress. So we went on a vacation recently to Florida, and so first of all, it happened right before this whole coronavirus thing blew up, and the plan was to get on a cruise ship, a Carnival, or no, it was, oh man, I really don't remember actually. I think it was Royal Caribbean, but I don't remember what sea line, and it doesn't matter anyway. We were going to get on a cruise, and the day before the cruise was supposed to depart, we were already in Florida. We have our tickets basically in hand, and we're at our hotel room waiting to just get onto the boat and sail into wherever. The day before, we all get an email saying COVID-19 has, basically intruded and has gone further than we anticipated and is now a national emergency. All out of the country excursions are canceled.
Mhm.
And we were like, fuck. So we immediately looked up Airbnb in the area, and we've actually found this nice little house
in the area. We just stayed there for the day. They had a pool, and there was tons of lizards in the backyard. So it was nice for me to just chase lizards and swim and whatnot. But my mom was ripping her hair out because the vacation was not what she planned it to be. And like we are all trying desperately to have as much fun as possible to make it obvious to my mom that we are not stressing out about it. It's still a vacation. You don't need to worry. We're all having fun. And like every little thing is like about ready to make her fucking like burst or cry or something. And we were all like we were all on the edge of our fucking seats because we were trying to make sure my mom knew that we were having fun. And it was definitely an adventure because it kind of tried our patience with one another because we were so close together. We got on each other's nerves from time to time, but it was nice to spend time with the family. And honestly, I was very thankful. I was very thankful for that vacation. It was only like a week long, but oh man, it is just so counterintuitive. I've often thought that so my mom is super Christian, but it's as if she made a deal with the devil because she has the strongest work ethic of any person I've ever met. She is constantly working. She gets up at 7 a.m. on days she's off and starts doing the dishes, mowing the lawn, doing laundry, cleaning up the living room. That's a cute photo. She's constantly doing something. She's making food. She's, she's so often just like doing something, and it's like she made a deal with the devil to have this great work ethic, but the cost was that she can never relax. So she will never catch a wink of sleep.
I feel like scientifically significant to this situation is that it takes. This is apparent. This is anecdotal to some extent. I heard it from like a TED talk or something.
How long ago do you think?
Probably like 2 months.
Okay.
But so the vacation times that we're allotted, like standard vacation time. If you stay with like a company for 1 year, it's like a week.
Oh, you mean like when you're working for a company, the vacation days that they give you as like part of your wage, so to speak. Yeah. Or your salary, I guess.
Benefits.
Your benefits.
So you get like vacation time. You get 80 you get.
Should have done that animation slower.
You get 40 hours year 1. Year 2, you get like 60 to 80 hours.
I'm sure after a certain tenure, like 3-5 years, maybe you get more than the first year or
like
something.
3 weeks sometimes. So it takes your brain 10 days of not going to work to get out of work mode, to where you can actually start like enjoying your vacation.
I mean, unless you meditate, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's like exceptions.
I'm sure there's
like
exceptions.
other things that come in.
But probably the average.
The average person takes 10 days to get out of work mode. So for a 2-week vacation, you have 14 days. That's 4 days of vacation, and one of them is the Sunday where you know you're about to go back to work.
So that's basically 3.5. Or 2.5.
2.5 days roughly of like actual vacation. All the rest is like
such a fucking
getting
brutal thought.
Getting used to like she still has that built up stress.
That's
from
the
work.
worst.
And so one thing went wrong, and she didn't know what to do. And she didn't think, like, I'm just going to Google cool things to do. Like, because me and my grandma, when we went to South Dakota, that's where Mount Rushmore is, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty
I
sure
know it's a Dakota, but I couldn't remember if it's north or south.
So we went to one or the other. And, like, me and my grandma, being the chill people that we are, like, I think, like, half of the things that we had planned when we went up there
fell through.
We couldn't get them done, but we found so many different cool things to do.
That's
on
awesome.
The side. We were like driving through, and then my grandma was like,
"Ooh, what about this?"
And then she like missed her exit on purpose to go a little further out of the way so that we could go to this cool like truck stop sort of thing that had a bridge that you walked over the highway with.
Oh, that's cool.
It was like an indoor bridge. So
that's
like,
cool. The windows.
You walked up the stairs, and then there was like a gift shop and like concession stand and like a food court, so
Right,
you can eat
different
above
restaurants
above
and
the
all.
highway,
Oh, that's
And, like,
cool.
and like that
Dude,
was
Little
like,
adventures.
yeah.
Dude, what was it that Josiah said? It was that like an adventure is just like a positive perspective on an inconvenience or something to that effect. But I remember it was a day that I didn't work, but I came in, and maybe this was after I'd quit. No, it wasn't. I still worked there. I think we ran out of milk, and I had to run to Hy-Vee, and I came back, and I'd said something about an adventure. I was like, yeah, whatever, it's just an adventure. And Josiah was like, you know what they say, you know, an adventure is just like a positively viewed inconvenience or something like that. And I was just like, what'd you say? He was like, oh, I'm not sure exactly where the quote came from, but like basically,
Still there.
God bless it. Yeah, he's dead. Okay, but like that stuck with me because I think it's more or less true. Because not to quote the worst episode of Rick and Morty ever, or the worst part of any episode of Rick and Morty, but you remember when Mr. Jellybean is in the bathroom with Morty, and he's like, I'm just afraid it's going a little too far off the rails. And he's like, isn't that what adventurers do? And he's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Just go with the flow. That's a terrible episode. I recommend it to everyone who wants to watch Rick and Morty. Maybe any viewers of this is already watching Rick and Morty, but anyway, it's true though. Like, if you expect to have fun in any degree, you have to kind of grapple with an unknown. Like, because if you're just doing, like, okay, so
For a quick example.
things that are fun typically imply an aspect of ingenuity on your part. A kind of, like, how do I handle this new thing that I've never dealt with before? You know?
So the vacation that I went on with a bunch of friends,
Mhm.
not my family.
Hey, real
who
quick,
was
I have to pee, but
practiced.
I'll hold it until you're done with this, and then we can just take a pause and basically just chop that blank portion out.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah. So we had no fucking clue what we were gonna do, and then we were driving through like this backwoods area to like kind of where the campsite was. I think we were. I can't remember if we were like avoiding highways, or I know we stopped at like a White Castle on the way, and so we like ended up on a weird detour. But we were in this like weird backwoods area, like 100 miles away from anywhere that we are familiar with, and then we drove up to this like intersection. There was like a split in the road, and right in front of the split was this like shoddy, like wooden, built of wood, but like shitty looking shop, and it was a tie-dye shop.
It just
It
looks
was
shitty
just,
on the outside.
yeah, it was just like it wasn't. It was really well decorated, but the building was like super run down, and we were like,
Needed new shingles.
Do you guys want to stop there? And everyone was just like, yeah. And then we like called. We had 2 cars, so we called the people who were in front of us, and we were like, hey, you guys should pull over right now. And then they like pulled over, and we like went into the tie-dye shop, and I think like Brendan and Emma bought some shirts, and I bought like I don't remember.
Maybe
if I
a
bought anything.
bandana or something.
Yeah,
that sounds
I don't
like
know.
your style. But dude, that's
But,
awesome. It's just like
we
accepting the unknown and rolling with it. rolling with the
rather
changes.
than like trying to like foresee everything that you're going to
And I think
encounter
specifically in regards to like problems with when my mom stresses out, she has this idea of like ideal perfection. How do I want things to turn out? But they never end up turning out how she wants them to turn out, and so by her standard, that's a failure. And she just, oh my god, like she just wrings herself dry on that notion. And that was something that I learned in psychedelics, is that you can't compare yourselves to your expectations because they never measure up ever.
you like walk up to the mirror on acid and you're like this is I'm gonna have like perfectly smooth skin, and then you look at yourself,
and you
turn
see
on
the
the
pores,
lights,
and you see
you
wrinkles,
see
and
like
you're
the
like,
little pimples and like the extra hairs that like you missed while you were shaving, and like your vision's a little more acute, so you like see all the little wrinkles that your face makes whenever it's
Right.
twitching, and you're just like, you either have to look at that and say like, I need to fix that, I need to shave, I need to like, use more skin treatment to make sure my skin is perfect, or you can say like, damn, that's cool. Like
I think that's something.
my face.
I think that's something that's so intrinsic to like the human experience. What it is to be a human is that like you are this perfect art, but there are some wrinkles, there are some impurities, there are some imperfections.
There's some brush strokes that went like 2 degrees the wrong
direction.
direction.
That's inextricable. You can't remove that from what it is to be human. And so many people get caught up on like, oh, I have to be perfect, must be perfect, have to be perfect. And they lose sight of the fact that you're creating something new. You're not supposed to be perfect, you're supposed to be something new. And you will be, you always are. But like that's something just so intrinsic to the human experience, is that you have to accept that imperfection and that you're not going to measure up with your expectations. And that's something that's really valuable about psychedelics. I'm going to pee.
A little bit.
Dude, hey, actually, I wanted to talk to you about art, music, and comedy.
Okay. As arts.
So, because those are all super subjective areas.
Yes.
But they all require a certain intuition that we all share. Because like within a degree of uncertainty, you can kind of say what is good music objectively. You can say what is bad music. This regards Sam Harris's Moral Landscape. But you can make objective claims about morality. Dude, there's 3 cats in here. We've had the door open for like 30 seconds.
Will you make sure he doesn't go in there?
Yeah.
But try to get him to come over here, because I want him.
He wouldn't. I tried and he wouldn't. I told you, I don't have the magic touch. Mango just loves...
I need you away from the microphones.
Okay, so let's try to define the term art.
Okay.
How do you think you would define that term? Because I have a sort of definition that maybe
Can you ask Siri to define aesthetic real quick?
Maybe.
Here. Define aesthetic. It doesn't say anything. Concerned with beauty or the appreciation of beauty. So.
Then we have to define beauty. And I think Socrates did that already.
Define beauty. A combination of qualities such as shape, color, or form that pleases the aesthetic senses.
So literally, the definition of aesthetic is rooted in beauty, and the definition of beauty is rooted in aesthetic. That's a circular argument already. That doesn't get us very far. But I was going to say that art is any creation. It has to be a creation. Because, like, we can say that, like, a leaf is art, but it's like, that, first of all, that implies creation. That implies a sort of intuition that created something that is aesthetic.
I feel like rather than creation, you should use the word assembly.
Well, no, because I think creation is the more apt term, because it implies a degree of like subjective intuition that imbued this arrangement of sight and sound and other senses that create an experience. Sorry, baby. No. They create an experience that somehow transcends the medium on which they are applied. Because you have a picture like the Mona Lisa, and then you have all the emotions that it imbues. You don't just have a photo of a woman. You have vulnerability and
a strange smile.
A strange smile, something that is enchanting, something that moves you. That's not strictly visual. That is emotional, and that is transcendent from the image. Like how when I speak words, you don't just hear sounds, you hear meaning.
True.
You don't hear like just specific noises like you hear meaning. that is a transcendent form, meaning that it not only expresses itself in the obvious way that is sound, but it expresses itself in this transcendent mode that is art or interpretation. And so I think art implies interpretation, and in order for you
subjective experience implies interpretation as well.
well,
And so
interpretation supply so
the reason I argued the word creation is because
or
a tree-
assembly.
No, the reason I argued against the term
Okay.
creation. This is not an argument for assembly.
Okay.
Against creation, but creation, like, not only, like, what's the term for non-plant?
Animal.
Yeah, not only animal organisms can generate things that are considered artful. So,
Yeah,
like,
I would agree.
is it wrong to argue that a leaf is art because it is beautiful? Or is something being characterized as
No.
art
No.
an entirely
Okay, so
subjective pursuit as well?
let's make a distinction between the leaf itself in its natural habitat, aside from any human observer, and then let's make the instance where you have potentially the photography student taking a photograph of the leaf to return to a group to be observed. You have the photograph of the leaf that was meant to be observed by a group of people to assess its aesthetic quality. And then you have just the leaf in nature existing as it does.
But would that not include, before photography, some caveman just picking up a really big leaf and being like, guys, look how big this leaf is?
I mean, yeah, but it's like, that's kind of the same thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is that, like, now I'm out. She's a rascal, dude. So, me and my sister were actually talking yesterday about, there's no word for it in our language, or as far as I know, any other language. That moment, it is a moment when you abstract a kind of like, so let's say you're just at a party and you are interacting with the people and engaging in the party, and then at a moment you are struck with this, like, this awe of the situation, and you just take a moment to listen, and you hear all the people talking, and you kind of understand the different emotions that are flowing in and out of the room, and you just appreciate the essence of that moment without actually engaging in the moment. You just take a moment to, like, appreciate it from an abstract sense.
Do you know what language the word is from?
No, there's no, I mean, I'm not making a reference to a specific language.
Because it sounds similar to sondering.
Perhaps.
Do you remember the definition of the word sonder?
No, but I guess. Hey Siri, define sondering. Sundering. Sundering.
S-O.
Stop it.
For the record, at this moment we have 4 cats and a lizard. The cats' names are Mango, Daisy, Naomi, and
Nadim.
Nadim. Nadim. In as in
Hey, big lady.
narcotic. ADIM.
AD as in ad lib. No mouth. Not closet. I'm not getting a register on the interwebs. You can take a look.
SONDERING.
Yeah, take a look. But it's kind of
Okay,
that
so
that moment when
just-
you're sitting on a rooftop alone, looking at the stars, just accepting and appreciating and absorbing a moment in its maximum capacity. I mean, I don't know if there's a.
That would be borderline Nirvana.
I mean, it's sort of like Nirvana, but it's like when you're at a family gathering and everyone's talking and laughing, and you're just saying like, "I love this moment. I'm glad that I'm here."
I would say that's a bit too positive for Nirvana. Nirvana
Is more like neutral.
Nirvana is more accepting that everything is one. Or that everything is. And that's what everything has in common.
Well,
And so, maybe not quite that, but, okay, so to
that's an
sum it-
interesting and simple way to put it, is that everything is. And that's what everything has in common. And that's the way in which everything is one.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty fucking straightforward explanatory.
But sondering is, like, when you are sondering, or when someone is to sonder. To sonder is to realize or, like, remember the fact that everyone around you has essentially the same level of consciousness and awareness that you do.
That's
And
interesting.
everyone has, like, their own perspective and their own life story and their own experiences and their own pains and struggles and
uniqueness.
ideas of beauty, and, like, they all have their own. Everything has their own thing. Everyone has their own thing going on.
Well, so I guess to bring it back to the definition of art, it kind of ties in with that moment where, like, art is anything that, in any capacity, causes you to undergo a sense of awe, or not even just awe, but appreciation, and in a way that is acknowledging of the intricacy.
So to contest that, like,
It's such a hard thing to nail down as a definition.
yeah, art. Okay, so like
man,
art as the creator versus art as the
creation.
observer.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
If you are an observer looking at things,
Wonton.
get out of here, go.
You may just have to take them out of the room.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be. Do you want to take a second and hunt them all down?
I think they're mostly good as long as they stay away from the plants. But-
Hopefully.
What was I saying?
Art.
Art.
So because of the creator and the observer.
So the creator of something, like, you know those red concrete and steel beams that come up out of the ground in front of the store at, like, Walmart, Hy-Vee, anything, things to keep cars from driving into the front door.
Yeah, I know what you talked about.
Okay, so, like, that is such a simple and useful construct. We would not even begin to think of it as art. And the people who created it, the people, like, not only the people who created the concept, but created those specific yellow or blue beams that are at Walmart.
And the
Like-
design that is copied. The design that is copied for everyone else.
Well, each individual instance of them. Like, we may not perceive it as art, but maybe when they're creating it, they're like, I am creating this thing that will keep people safe. Or, like, they may not appreciate it, but, like, I understand the beauty of this technology.
Let's take it for a moment. The archetype of the soldier, the one who protects its home, the one who the one who puts their life on the line, the one who sacrifices in order to benefit the whole. That archetype is, in a sense, art, because I mean, we use that archetype to depict characters in movies, or specific depictions in artwork, or any number of different artworks. I think like in movies, like we have the superhero movies. That's the archetype of the soldier, the archetype of the hero. That's something that we all deeply value from first principles. Without, I think, would you let Naomi out? I think she might just go.
No, I'll let her explore until she tries to get out.
Okay. Well, so that ties in with what you're saying. It's like that's so even something as simple as those little pillars of concrete and steel that prevent cars from driving into the front of stores. You would think of that as art, but all of culture is art. All of culture's inventions is art. All of culture's inventions and
from a certain perspective.
Well, I think from any perspective.
Well, think
you have to have an objective definition of the word art,
which is going to be really difficult to come by
because it's purely subjective.
There's people like Gordon Ramsay who, if you spice a food wrong, they will say this is not food. Like there are people who will say this is not art about things that you might consider artistic.
Let's take the example of the Mona Lisa and compare it to like a kindergartner's scribblings of their family.
Okay. You're really about the Mona Lisa today.
Well, I mean that's just the best definition. Hey, she's getting the tripod. There's gonna be a jiggle in the camera. That's funny. Let's take the Mona Lisa versus like a kindergartner's drawing of their family. Which one is more artistic? Because they both. Is that important? What does it say?
No,
cool.
It's unimportant.
Cool. Both of them are kind of. Both of them are extremely subjective interpretations of an extremely complex idea. And both are the individual's best expression of that idea. Even though maybe the child doesn't take as much care in determining what is, hello now, Mao. Are you good? Are you baby?
She is good, she is not baby.
Oh, she is wild. She is princess. She is warrior. She is strong and she is brave. Hey. Anyway, so like, who is to judge the artistic, the intrinsic artistic quality of the Mona Lisa versus the child's artwork? And that may even in itself be a contradiction, the intrinsic artistic quality, because intrinsic implies it's there from first principles. It's there without you needing to put it there. And then artistic also kind of implies that there's an observer that is needed to put it there.
Like with the Gordon Ramsay example, like there's a difference between art and what is considered artistic. So like scrambled eggs, you may not consider that an art because you do it every day.
Sure.
But Gordon Ramsay has a very specific way of making scrambled eggs that he believes is best. And so he believes unless you make it that way, you're likely making scrambled eggs wrong.
So then what about like the internal combustion engine? You mean that's an invention and it's purely functional, and there is a way in which to do it best that yields maximum efficiency from the explosion and the pistons and all that business.
So when you get into scientific fields, it becomes more of a question of like, what are we actually capable of imagining as humans? Because there could be some sort of quasi fourth dimensional mechanic
that is in accordance with maximizing maximizing intrinsic value.
maximizing output, which is what we value from.
Which is what we value, but maybe not what the objective universe values.
But if we're making a statement, which is what mechanic does this operation most efficiently with the least amount of energy and time invested in it,
Yeah.
then you can objectively
You can objectively claim. Yeah.
You can objectively evaluate those claims.
Right. Yes. You can.
Like the Toyota Camry transmission may not be the best possible transmission, and it may not, like, I don't know exactly how transmissions work, but it may not like exactly fire in the exact pattern necessary, but it is one of the most durable.
I think.
Jesus, get your shit together.
Sorry. I think something else that's important to note is that, like, so the Toyota Camry, the transmission may not be the best at the thing you are measuring, but it's the best at being itself. It is the best at whatever measurement it is best at. I mean, you can find whatever measurement that it is best at, and you can measure it as best in that category. But what you can't say about it is that it's not unique. It's perfectly unique. It is perfectly itself. And that's like every instance. Yeah, the design. No, not even just no, because the design is like an archetypal or conceptual iteration. It's not an object. If you have one engine as a block and you plop it on the floor, and then you take another engine and you plop it on the floor, those things are not the same. You can go down to the micrometer, the nanometer, and you can find differences that make them unique to one another.
Yes.
They're unique with respect to one another.
With each instance, not
with each
necessarily
instance,
the concept.
it is a completely unique thing. You will always find nuance and unique properties.
Hey.
And so, like, what is art if not that aspect of uniqueness, that aspect of intrinsic novelty? But it's intrinsic novelty with respect to that transcendental evocation of meaning. I can't hand you an avocado that I've punched and just be like, art, here you go. It's like, how do you interpret that avocado? How do you interpret it with respect to meaning? It doesn't have any if you don't put any on there.
If you don't put any context.
Right, you don't put any context.
If we're having Mexican food and you toss me an avocado, I can assume it's my responsibility to make guacamole.
To make guacamole, or to slice it up, or to do whatever it is that is implied in the meaning of that avocado.
But no context if we're just like we run into each other in the parking lot at a grocery store and you toss me an avocado. Like, the only inference that I can take from that is to just take it home, I guess.
Take it home, I guess.
Give it
or
back.
Let's make it one level harder. As like, if you're an alien and you've never seen an avocado on this planet or our planet before, and I just throw you an avocado, what the fuck is that? That's like the equivalent of me being handed some like multifaceted worm creature, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to do with this. It doesn't make any sense. Art has to make sense to the observer in order for it to be art.
Wait, okay, define make sense.
It has to have an interpretable meaning.
I don't know if that's necessarily true either. Because,
okay, so take any any example you think doesn't fit that quality, and I'll admit defeat if it happens, but I don't.
Take an abstract piece of art, such as a paint splatter on the right side and a white canvas on the left, with like streams of color across it.
So, like those streams imply what colors you're using imply emotional connection. And also the splatter. There's so much uniqueness to the aggressiveness of the throw or the gentleness of the swipe that caused it to. There's a lot of delicacy that goes into those interactions. Whether or not you can even glean them from
the artwork. There's so much intricacy that goes into the emotion of what that art implies. Whether there's colors of, heat and strength, or coolness and vulnerability, or distance and somberness. You can imply, you can cause implications that you maybe even didn't foresee. But from the observational standpoint, as long as I can make sense of it, I will make sense of it. And that sense that I make of it becomes it, in a sense. Because, whether or not Leonardo da Vinci meant to imply something with the quirkiness of the smile in the Mona Lisa, people draw inferences about what they think it means. And the true personality of the Mona Lisa. Maybe Leonardo is going, you guys are fucking idiots. I did not say anything about the Mona Lisa. I did not actually design that smile to be anything special. It's just supposed to be a quirky kind of, small smile, whatever. But people ascribe meaning to something. And that's something also unique to humans, that we ascribe meaning where it doesn't necessarily apply. We do that frequently. That's why we see faces in things that don't have them, And
We should cut for a second.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry, not to cut you off on that.
No, go ahead.
It is 11 o'clock. Do you want to stay here for dinner? And then
Oh, I guess I hadn't really thought about
we're
that.
cooking here in a few, I don't know, I was thinking maybe 10 minutes from now, or 15, 20 minutes from now.
Because it's currently 9:55.
So 11-ish. We could cook earlier, but I think she's hungry. And
Wait, is it? Wait. Am I an hour behind?
9? No, it's 10. Yeah, see, the shorthand's the hour.
Wait, yeah, that's right. Oh, you're right. Why did I? Can't read a fucking analog clock.
No! Did you find push-ups or anything on that? Because I need 15 minutes of exercise to...
If you can make push-ups last 15 minutes, I will make you dinner. Fuck. No, I did not find push-ups on here.
I was thinking some sort of mix,
Badminton. I don't know what barre, Barre. It shows a little picture of a guy with a pole.
Oh, I have no idea.
I have no idea what that is. Basketball, core training. Dude, is core training just sit-ups? I need to find a good abdominal workout. Because I haven't been training it very much. I've been doing, so I'll take the pull-up bar and I'll pull myself up to it, and then I'll just raise my legs. Raise my knees up to my chest multiple times. And that's a pretty good workout, but I can really only get 5 or 6 before my arms get tired. And honestly, the 5 or 6 that I do get in is kind of a hardcore 5 or 6.
Yeah, you work your back a lot
You
more than you
work-
work
Well, I wouldn't say that I work my back more than I work my abs, but I certainly work them both in strenuous degrees.
But think about how much you bent over to pick stuff up during the day. So your back is a lot stronger than your abdomen is.
That's true. My
You
back
don't-
is my back is already stronger than
You
my
don't-
abdomen.
Yeah, you don't pull.
And so if I'm working out both at the same time in roughly even equal dimensions, my back already has more muscle built. So the degree to which it has to gain is lesser than the degree to which my abdomen has to gain. Because if my abdomen's starting at 0, and even if it goes up to 15, then that's still more than 30 to, the percentage wise. If I'm going from 30 to 60, and going from 0 to 15, it's an infinite increase, so to speak. Or from 1 to 15.
Yeah, I do think for an episode, because we spent the majority of this time talking about art and beauty.
Well,
and
yeah, and
we never really-
backstory and vacation and things like that.
Yeah.
And morality.
And so a lot of that time was spent going through whether or not something is considered art. And we really needed to go back.
I kind of like that because
Establish,
we're covering all the bases. I think
with that.
But I also think we're kind of looping with our argument. We're kind of like
Well,
not necessarily looping back and forth, but looping within our own arguments. We're like
maybe to a degree, because I kind of keep coming back to the same word, transcendence.
art is one of those things that, like, me personally, it's one of those things that is beyond science. It's not necessarily beyond science because there's a science to finding what
It's
people
reproducible.
find.
The effects of art is reproducible. You know,
Maybe
you can. Hello, Dimple.
if you
No! Get. She's like, I must go in the closet. Oh, man.
But we were thinking
Did you have an idea for dinner? Or
we were gonna do something with potatoes. Obviously, we were gonna
fuck yeah, I fucking love potatoes.
I'm thinking like fried potatoes, maybe with.
Do you still have that seasoning
chicken.
bag I gave you?
No, I used it. I used it all.
Good, that's good. I'm glad.
Steak feels good for tonight though. I wish
Do you
we
have
had
steak?
No,
I was gonna say.
I wish.
I do have a T-bone back at home.
Is it frozen?
It's frozen.
I don't know if you want to get it.
I mean,
No.
I could, but I don't want to drive. That's
Okay.
it. I don't want to drive. If you
Yeah.
want to get it,
We
you can
can-
drive me.
We can. Chicken is also an option. I think
Chicken's good.
Or shrimp, but shrimp.
Shrimp is a little more
Shrimp.
effort.
No, it's not.
Are they already shelled?
Yeah.
Deshelled?
Deshelled, detailed, everything.
Tight. That's
Um,
good then.
But potatoes, we weren't really sure what else to do with that.
Potatoes, shrimp. Do you have any veggies?
We have peppers,
Do you have broccoli?
onions, broccoli,
Cool. Carrots?
no carrots.
Peas? Broccoli is a good filler. Do you have any rice?
Yes, always. We
Just-
always have rice.
Just have a scoop of rice on the side as filler is always great. I love having
we
rice.
make rice with pretty much every meal.
Good.
If not
So honestly, rice, broccoli, chicken, and
potatoes,
potatoes.
baked potatoes, or like baked diced potatoes.
That's a solid. I mean, that's a solid variety, and it will taste great as long as put a little salt in each of them, a little bit of extra seasonings. Dude, I'm not super picky about my seasonings, but I like to have specifically like rosemary, always. Rosemary and garlic.
Emma has somewhat of an aversity to, not adversity, but aversity to, averseness to.
What is averse?
Rosemary.
Does that mean bad or good?
She does not like rosemary.
Oh, she is.
And also that's because
She has a.
averseness.
Oh wait, no.
Averse.
What's the word? I think you're saying it wrong. But she has a. She has a. Potion of aversion. She has an aversion.
Right, aversion, yes.
She has an aversion to fire.
Do you want to kill this?
Yeah, we can go ahead and kill
We
it.
should mash this up.
Hey, guess what? Fuck you. Say, Anthony, come here. Say fuck you.
Fuck you.
Ah.